Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus Three Futures and Commodities Show. My name is Ben Maldonado. We are recording shortly after the close on November 3rd, and I'm here as always with my partner, Barrie Hederachi. Barrie, it's November.
It's November, and what a start! What a start of the month!
Oh, my God.
Talk about ramp into November, eh? It's like,
Man, we talked last weekend about the significance of the time frame and the Rebel Yell cycle, everything coming in
mhm.
on last weekend, and we said we got to see price action coming out and see what happens. And boy, did it happen. Anyway, we're going to get into that in a second. This show, we're going to be covering, as we always do with Barrie, the big five. We're going to do ES, we're going to do bonds, we're going to do gold, we're going to do copper, we're going to do the dollar, we're going to do the euro, crude oil, really do a comprehensive review and see what were the effects of that cycle, what were the effects of that window that we came out of on each individual market, because they are different for markets. Barrie's going to throw it over to me. I'm going to do the NQs. I'm going to do Bitcoin. And then we're going to talk about soybeans, coffee, silver, and nat gas. So we got a lot to cover. Let's not waste a lot of time. Let's dive right into it.
All right.
It was a hell of a week.
It was a hell of a week. Yep. And it's not often that we may get to make just straight V bottoms, and
No.
I think everything lined up nicely. So last week we left off at the low, and the number we had to deal with was 41.50. And I talked about how, even if we went a little lower to sort of finish the ABCD or whatever we do here, we talked about false breaks and all kinds of scenarios. But it had to 41.50 was the number to watch, and if we can hold above that, then the next level would be the 50% of the square. We cover that, then it's really 43.70. It's the same thing in reverse.
Yeah, pushed right into 43.70, didn't it?
So we pushed strongly into 43.70.
Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? So let's take a quick look at the 30-minute just to see how things panned out. So here's the low. We called this out. We called the low out, that Friday, and the Friday that it happened on the 27th. And then we were looking for, we're always going with price levels. So it's always a level, right? We had 41.39 here. And the way we look at it is every time a level is taken, we look at level to hold. And boy, look at this. If this doesn't show you how levels work, just perfectly ran right up into 270 degrees from the low, and by 225. So really right in there, ran right up into it. And usually after a move like this, near vertical move, very strong move, stronger, it's rare that we just blow through every full square.
Right.
So that kind of put a plug on it for now. And if you notice these trend lines, you can see like as we went higher, we're not even getting anywhere, pullbacks aren't getting anywhere near it.
Right.
So it's been very, very strong. A lot of buying coming in.
Persistent buying. And I remember talking with you either Sunday night or Monday, and we were talking about, hey, the cycles came in, we had the Rebel Yell cycle, you had some time counts. And I said, man, Barrie, we gapped up into that.
Yeah.
I said, that's a sign. Yeah, there was a gap open, and then we just, went up and started capturing levels, as you said, and making higher highs and higher lows. And that was the clue that at least for ES, the cycle was marking a bottom, and there was a change from there.
And we always talk about, just to segue just for a little bit, quick lesson here, because we don't see very strong bull legs all the time. Usually wishy-washy. It's a really messy, sloppy kind of legs that are grinding and scrubbing. But here's a good example. We ran the square 72 all the way till today when I was trying to figure out what's up in here, and it was that 270. But if you look at it, you can see how we got into the 72, like it held perfectly, broke above, came back.
Nice little ABCD there.
ABCD, exactly, right into the square, ran back up, and it barely didn't hang out and consolidate exactly at the 144, ran back up again, stalled exactly at the 216.
Yep.
And it basically consolidated all night. You can see how shallow that pullback was. I mean, it's not even a pullback. It's just very shallow
Sideways, yeah.
sideways consolidation. And then on the news, boom, broke right through the 43, 33, 43, 40 zone and just started marching up. And really this 43.85, 43.67, I've had there from the past charts. You guys can go back and look. But I was trying to see if there was any squares coming out here because we're right up around 270 up here because 288 is right up there. So then I switched to the 90 just to see what's happening, and there it is. We had 270 by 225.
Yeah, put on 52 and see what it looks like. 52 works pretty well too.
From the low.
Yeah, I was looking at that this morning.
Yeah, 52 works pretty well because it's 54 is part of the 72 harmonic, 144 harmonic, because 54 is 108. So that works nicely.
Yeah.
It's very cool. A lot of these harmonic numbers work, just perfectly. Let's get back to
the daily
and to see what happens next week. Well, before we get into next week, I think let's go to the weekly S&P. I think it'll be.
We had a reversal up there, obviously.
Yes. Yep. And it has a part to play here. So looking at this.
Little back kiss.
I mean, right to the line. Right to the line.
Yeah.
And, I haven't moved any of this. You guys can check last week and the week before.
Months and months and months.
It's been the same. Well, the thing is, it's good to know what the larger time frame is, and weekly is a great time frame to sort of keep an eye on the longer term, like the bigger picture. Even the daily gets a little noisy,
Sure.
It's good to have the weekly. And looking at the weekly, we talked about this range. We dropped a little box in here. You guys can see that little shady area and said, well, that area is going to be really strong support, mainly because the veg up here, we had this, really strong support, a big floor here. So it was expected for it to hold here. And not only the pattern, but you can see how the geometry kind of fell right in line with the pattern, right? We have 50% of the square running right up against the highs of that. And now we caught the low. So that tells us a couple of things. The important thing is the square is still working, which is great. Second, we have to look at the trend line and what's the overall trend doing. So that holding is no big bonus, okay, great. So it can hold. That's fine. So what happens next? Long as we're under this trend line, which is really the only trend line we can draw, because those are the only 2 points we have here. Now we could do a steeper line here. You can see, right there. Well, let me draw it in so you guys can see it.
It looks like it's just about to be broken.
Well, yeah, we just
on it.
Yeah, we just pushed up against it. So, so there's a line. I want to put a bunch of lines in here, but so in fact, what happened is we came right to the cross of the two lines, right?
Sure.
More or less. So let's see how we follow through next week. But all I want to say is we're still making lower lows and lower highs.
Yes.
Okay. So
on a weekly basis.
On a weekly basis, so long as we're below, this 44.28. What is the high there? Let me take a look. The high was 44.30. Is that right? Yeah, 44.30.
Yep.
As long as we're below that, we still haven't, technically taken out the last swing high, right?
On a weekly basis,
on a weekly basis.
And I love that because on my daily full square, 44 is the number. So it's right in that neighborhood.
Right there. Yep.
Yep.
And that could be a false break kind of a move too.
Yeah, right.
So,
right.
And just taking that out doesn't mean everything got started either. But look what happened here. We came right down into a drive, did the 3 drives into here. And we had this, so breathtaking move up, took out the prior high.
Yeah.
Just to reverse and, come back and make new lows. So, hey, these things can happen. But anyway, what the point here is to say the weekly, we had a reversal. We had a good, strong week up, very convincing. It's going to leave a lot of people probably chasing the market next week. But either way, as long as we're under this main trend line, it's still in a downtrend technically, right?
Bigger picture. Yep.
The bigger picture.
Mhm.
Now, so what about the low that came in? What about the fact that it held the support? What about all of that? Well, that's great, but it wasn't some amazing square like here, where it was, 1 by 2. It wasn't square like up here. It
Mhm.
was, it was okay. It basically came into support. It wasn't really squaring out in some big way. So I'm not putting a whole lot of weight in this. It's worthwhile for a corner, but
Mhm.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I don't think it's the low that's going to take us into a brand new highs.
It's funny. I always say on X, I'll say it is a low, but not most likely not the low. And that's you're saying basically the same thing. It's a corner, but I don't think it's the corner.
Right. And I think once we consolidate here, however we finish doing for the next going into December, I guess 4 more bars, 5 bars, 6 bars, will tell us how we're going to behave around that trend line and this shrinking pattern in here. We had to break either the downside or the upside, right? We can't
Right.
continue in here. So we'll watch for that. But for now, we got support. We got a nice run out of the support, and we stopped at resistance, we can say, more or less, because of the lines. So here, I think a little bit of caution is warranted because of the strong move up. It's highly unlikely we have another strong move up like that. If we do, it'll probably going to stall up in here about 44.82, where the trend line is. So let's just keep an eye on that. Just the word of caution, like let's not throw everything up in the air.
I know. Plus, if you look left, look at all that overhead from the high, the previous high in
we have a lot
there.
of that right there. Yep.
Yep.
Not to put a red flag up, but maybe a yellow flag at this point. And
The
this is
easy
the high,
money. The easy money was made.
easy money was made, and you got to be quick. And yet, basically had 4 or 5 days to do it.
Right.
So we're good there. And this is the high. This little triangle area is where we got stuck. And that's why 43.70 is going to be important. Somehow these levels come into play, however way we market twist.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I didn't think we'd be up in here when we
No.
were talking about 41.50. Who's
No.
gonna? I didn't see that coming. I thought at best we might get stuck in here somewhere. So the fact
So
that we had extra gas, all right, great. So we're here.
now the bulls want to see us stay on top of that 43.70.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of hard.
It's
That's
going to be
very
tough.
shallow.
Not a lot of room.
I mean, we've 9 points above it. So so let's drop down. If you guys are watching the short terms, let's drop down into this to really hold it. Come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I think 42.50 area is the key. So, like we say normally, I would say let's take it down to, I don't know, 43.30, 43.50. Let's cut it in half and say 43.40. All right. So if we can stay above 43.40, I think, I think the momentum will still have a lot of momentum left. The market's very strong because that's not that big of a pullback. Considering how shallow these were,
Right.
The stronger the market gets, the shallower the pullbacks get. So watch these. If we start exceeding these kind of pullbacks, then we're normalizing the sort of we're done with the big rush, gold rush. So that's that. So 43.70, of course, it's the key, but we're going to treat that more like resistance up until it becomes support, which means we really have to settle above it in some sense, like we did up here. Yeah.
So we got a pretty tight range then, 43.40 to 43.70.
43.40 is right there. So basically, let's take the high on the November 2nd high. All right, that was 43.40. There you go.
There you go.
That's what. So take that high. If we can hold above that, the market's extremely strong still. And if we can consolidate in here, that's still strong. Anything that would sort of take the power away would be a reversal, which would be taking today's low out, and that would be 43.25. We take 43.25 out, which is the number I just deleted. Dang it. I had 43.25 in there and I just deleted it.
For a long time, you had that one in there.
Yeah. So, all right, fine. You guys know the numbers. That's kind of what it is. Is it going to continue to go up? It could if it holds the 43.40 level. If it doesn't, we're probably going to come into some correction and back check. Ideal, healthy correction would be somewhere, even pulling back down to 42.75 would still be very, very positive. But the higher the level, the better. I think 43.40 is the number to go with for next week. As long as we're above that, we're okay. But if we somehow get stuck below 43.70 and, momentum starts to really die, then I think we could expect a lower move consolidation in here. But I'm not calling a high in here because we don't have anything really that squared out in a big way.
No.
What we did was we did find a lot of resistance. Okay. I mean, there is resistance, no question, especially from this high. I think let me see, on another chart, we're 60 degrees down from here at this high. We're 45 down from here at this high on my 4-hour chart. So, there's enough overhead there to hold it. So that's basically the story. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's good. I think, like you said, we got to see the character of this next pullback and how deep or how shallow and how quick or how long before we can really make an assessment of, what's most likely to happen next.
But for now, between 43.40 and 43.70, I think we can kind of figure out the balance, which way it's going to push. And if you guys want to, follow us daily, we both post a lot of stuff and our Twitter links are in the description. So you can follow us there. We post every morning. We post 30-minute update and all the fuse lines. And if you guys like our work, please remember to click the likes, share, hit the alerts, and subscribe. We never say that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and subscribe. That helps.
Boy, man, look at the changing character that happened with that cycle.
And this is the thing we left last time. We were looking at it. I said, well, we do have this, so we could probably get a bounce off of it. And I was looking for it to probably consolidate in here, but I think everybody was so relieved. We kind of took the party all the way into the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, way over. But we did talk about, there is a trend line here, which is really kind of a important trend line. Let me make it so that you guys can see it.
Cuts right through the 72 there too.
Yeah, and I think it's something we have to notice. There you go. That line right there. Let's watch that, mainly because next week we're hitting that line and the 72 around the same time. So 116, 16 and a half should be resistance. That's what we're looking at. Plus it's just 36 degrees to move up. Seems about like the perfect place for some kind of a stop to this run up, and we could, if it does go up and test that, we're going to end up with another expanding triangle, because then we can draw a line up this way. We got to draw a line this way. So we could probably, somehow consolidate in here before moving lower. We are looking for lower prices, although this is okay, but we're looking for lower prices. Let's just leave it at that.
Right.
And we really haven't, although we took out this swing high, I think this is more of a consolidation than a big old rally in bonds at this point.
Interesting. We do have a monthly up bar in bonds already.
Well, yeah, that's fine. I think we need at least about 3 months of monthly bars, to get a trend rolling in that direction. But yeah, let's see.
There's your weekly.
There's a weekly. We had that ABCD come in. We had the 144 target met and hit and a little bit exceeded with all that extra fear.
Right.
And so we're in that zone, and I'm not, to be honest, I'm not really seeing a huge rally here. Here's that line, it's a similar line. Let me darken this one so you guys can see that a little bit better.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a line right there. So 116 and a half, what's what we came up with in the daily, right? And so let's see what happens in here next week. It's kind of an issue, if you want to get long at the thing, fine, but I would like to wait this out a little bit and see how everything pans out. I think it's still a little bit too up in the air. That's my take. Know what I mean?
Yeah, it looks like a dead cat bounce right now. We'll see how much staying power it's got.
I mean, it's like you say, it's at a low.
It's a low. Yep.
It's a low because of that other square. So it's a low worthy of having some kind of a bounce. So we've already talked about that. Let's move on to crude.
Looking like it wants to do an ABCD down, doesn't it?
Sure does. Actually, let me put that in there
Mm-hmm.
because it's been doing them so well.
Yeah.
It really doesn't pay to ignore ABCDs, no matter what
No.
system you're using.
No.
It's just good to have it as a marker.
It's a great marker.
There we go. It looks about like a good, perfect place to come back to.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. What a better place to do a false break that level.
Right.
Right? Just
Right.
enough. All right. So crude 83 was the level we were watching. This little box we drew up 83 to 81. Let's see, 81.50, 81 and a half, 83 was the level. We started to slip this week. You can see how all the highs every day was up in the 83. We're trying to, tap that, maybe get above that, but just couldn't do it. What happened was there's selling coming in at 83, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just couldn't do it every day, try to get up there. And we ended up below the 50%. And if we start to slip, well, we're going to slip. We're going to slip, minimum would be this 76 area.
Mm-hmm.
So it could get there. And I think if you're going to trade it short term, might as well do that. Unless we manage to get above 81 and a half, 82, then I would pause and wait for it to resolve. It's a little difficult when we go into a sort of a critical area, like a full square or half a square, and we start going sideways on the square.
Yeah.
So then
Chop.
Yeah, it's a little chop. But we did do 90, this is 90 low to low if we come in. So that's something else to think about.
That's a good point.
So here.
You know what this chart and the tools and the levels show? How important it is not to watch or listen to the news and try and trade off of it. Because think about what's been going on while this correction's taking place. A war in the Middle East that everyone thinks is going to be World War III, and it's going to be the Arabs against the Jews against the U.S., and the oil's going to get cut off. You'd think oil would be at 150.
Yeah.
I mean, so the
Half
price,
asleep
right?
at 80.
The chart is telling you that it's not going to be that bad, but that's not what the news headlines are saying.
Yeah, exactly. Well, news headlines. So yeah, this is exactly the case here. It's the futures are somehow managing at 80. Actually, is going down through the whole thing.
Yeah,
we never really took out any new highs, even with the whole thing starting. So oil was always kind of on pause.
It was yawning when all the news was hitting, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
It's doing a normal correction within this bull run that we saw that started, earlier this year.
Yeah. And not only, we thought it would holding above this 83 area, right? That would be something, but we didn't even want to do that. But anyway, the point of the chart here, what I wanted to show you was that we are doing, so here's that 60-degree mark that we had. That's a 30. Okay, that's a 30 by 90, right? And we're doing 90 days low to low, although this is not the best low. So it's something to keep an eye on. If we slip through here, I would think we're going to spend a lot more time below 83 in the coming days, right?
Sure.
So I think that's kind of to be expected. Not to say, I wouldn't say I wouldn't go as far to say the oil's in a bear market.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
We're not quite
It's a normal correction in this off that first big move up.
Yeah, it's a normal correction, and drop dead support is really around 73.50. This blue line here, you can see how it's on top of all that. And we found support there before. And this entire box over here. So there's a lot going on down below, like 73.50 is really like the support level. In here, we'll see probably some consolidation coming back, maybe at least to close up the ABCD. So if you guys can watch that, I think that'll probably be the only thing you need as a guide,
Weekly, we got a down bar.
Weekly, we got a down bar, and we were expecting it to, weekly, we were looking for it to consolidate in this box, and we pretty much came to the lower end of the box. So I'm expecting it to be in this box at a minimum. And the thing is, to talk about the war and everything, long as we're in this box, we can anytime quickly run up if we have to, right? But if we get under this box, then I think really there's no worries, and we got oil everywhere.
Right. Something's going on.
Yeah. So for now, I think it's okay. Let it consolidate. It's in a firm, I would say a firm position. not super strong, but not super weak either. Gold took a breather. I think that was a long run for gold. Gold's heavy. You can't run too far, right? So here's our run up, went up to our 2000 line, which is in the weekly charts. And we talked about this line. I drew this line in, and we talked about how that kind of vertical move can't really be held for that long. And we didn't, and long as we're above this 50% line, which is about 1965, let's say, yeah, it's still in a strong position. So we'll see. It looks like to me, it's just consolidating. Certainly not a bear market.
No, nope,
right, not at all. And so what's the deal here is, we have an inside week. Now, if we take out the high next week, that's very bullish. And that could happen in a flash. And if we take out the low, well, I think we've seen the highs for a few weeks.
Well, here's something to add to your mix. On the monthly, we did an outside reversal bar up last month.
Okay.
Which is big, as you know.
That's big, of course.
That's a big change. So whether, like you said, we get an inside bar or an inside month, or we chop around for a little bit, the bigger trend, said it shifted from selling to buying all in 1 month.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a good pivot. And so I would say, as long as we're holding up in here, we're okay. It would be fair to come back to these other highs, these two weekly highs, like 1946.50. It's still okay, even if it comes down there, basis the weekly, right? So, but for now, I would just focus on the weekly to see if we take out this week's high or low, and expecting that to set the short-term trend for the next few bars. I think that's a fair way to look at that. Looking at copper, really kind of
starting to perk up. It was yawning, but you can see
it's a little yawn, but it's yawning,
crawling.
Exactly.
And you got on top of your half square.
That's the thing. That's what I was going to say. It's doing all of that, but it's doing it very quietly. And we quietly got above, like last 2 days, we are on top of the 50% square, and we're just pressing on this line. So next week, either we're going to break below the square, or we're going to break above this trend line. Either way, the 354 held, kind of 3 drives. We had a false break, ran up here. So our whole, the whole time we were talking about, we really need to get about the 50% of the square, which it did this week. So I think, above 365, it's firming up, and you can start to trade the long side.
Agreed.
Long as we're above that half point of the square. Inside week. So
look at your timing though. Perfect, right?
Pretty good.
On the half square.
Yeah. Can't
the low came in right there.
And those things aren't exactly shouldn't be ignored.
It's not random.
No, not random. Well, the thing is, we just like in gold, we have inside bar. So I would say taking out the high next week would be very bullish. So remember that, you guys. And taking out the low would be also important, but not because it looks like we already tested all that and flushed everything out. But the long side could set up if we take out this week's high. Makes sense, right? Structurally, it's just right there.
Absolutely.
Take a quick look at the dollar.
That had a bit of a change in trend too.
And look what stopped it. It was ABC coming.
Yeah.
So we were running a couple of different charts coming off the low, and that's how we got into here. And then I ran the chart from the high, because the low came in on a 1/3 line here. So I figured, if we can hold above the full square, that's very bullish. If we lose this, I drew this box out for the last month or two. We've kind of bounced it up and down, or up around it. Didn't quite hold it this week. We started to go a little bit lower. So that's the thing, we had the nice run, consolidating, correcting a little bit. This could be 3 drives. We'll see how it works out. But for now, I don't see this to be even a high. I think this is a consolidation and some kind of I guess it could be a high. A little bit of a correction, maybe a couple more weeks, maybe a week. Let's see how that pans out. But for now, It's weaker than it was when it was above the square, right? And we're going to allow it to trade lower. We haven't even had one counter trend move, so we'll have to. That's why I can't really say much. I want to see what happens Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Even if we go lower, we want to see that next counter trend. And watching that, we can figure out if we want to sell it or not at that point.
Right, especially if it gets stuck below that 72, then it would be a real sell. Yeah,
exactly. And here's another case of where we came off of that from the other side. See, we came down for a few days, 1 day counter trend, inside bar, took out the low of the inside bar. Then that started this entire move down. And here's another one, high, 1 day down, 2 bar counter trend. And then here we go, took the entire thing. So it's worthwhile watching that. So we'll continue to watch it. And looking at the weekly dollar, what happened was we held at the half square. Well, hell, we hit the target, 106.75, 107 was really the resistance up there. And, we pushed, well, I would say pretty well, several weeks up against that. And we just couldn't settle above volatility. It was too high to hold above that 50% of the square, which was like 106. And we did what we do have here on a weekly basis, an outside reversal. So encompassing a few weeks, right? Last 3 weeks. So it's kind of a big deal. It could come down. And you can see on the weekly, we have support right around 104 or so, 104 and a quarter basis weekly. So we'll see what happens. The major trend line is still intact. It's very, very strong. Market's in a pretty strong position, especially above 104, 104.25. And if you go to your left, you can see, these other older highs are right there. So we're well above that. Okay. And when that's the case with the dollar, euro is going the other way.
The inverse. Yep.
Now, the good thing is we saw this low coming. We saw the high in the dollar. We saw the ABCD come in, and we were talking about how, the big move, the easy money was over. Now we got to let it consolidate, finish up. So we're kind of still in the same mode. We had the easy money. Now we're waiting for the counter trend. It's still kind of going, chugging along. Maybe 108 is the number they're shooting for. Some of these times, and some of these numbers just continue to work. Let's see how that works out. What we did have here was kind of like the 90 that we were talking about in was it crude? Here we have 270 low to low,
Yeah.
And here we had 180 low to low, and we had 90 low to high. So you can see this 90 vibe is pretty good cycle in here. It's working fairly well. And so this should give us, at least I would say 108 would be a reasonable. A normal thing would be like 108, 109, 1089 is the 50% of the square. So we could get up in there. But 108 seems like a reasonable place to go. See what happens there.
Yep.
Let's take a quick look at the weekly.
Still in your box.
Still in the box. So this is why I keep saying 108. This really is the resistance, 108. It's 108.08. There you go. So long as we're in here, I think it's consolidating. It's weaker than, let's say, if it was in a bull market, for example, right? You can think of it like that. So it seems reasonable that we hold below this for this run. And I don't think the downturn is done yet. But being that we've been in such a bear market, it's possible that we have something bigger happen cooking here. But for now, we're going to watch that. And after that next pullback, following that 108 contact, we'll deal with it when we get there. But for now, it's not that exciting. There are a lot more lower risk places to trade. So that's all I got. Let me put it back to you. What do you got going today?
We're going to do NQ Bitcoin, soybeans, coffee, silver, nat gas.
All right. Nat gas. Yes. Important.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me put it back to you.
Talk about vertical.
Right to the line.
Right? Yes, indeed.
Right line. And we have the line above that, right up at your equilibrium line.
Yeah. And so we were talking last week. What do we got? Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. Yeah, we closed right in here. Like we were talking about
Mhm.
just under the line, but still the bar was on the line.
Yep.
And then we got 2 days where the lows were on the line, on the full square, and then it took off. Now we've kind of cleared the half square here. So now, by the way, all these levels are on a Google Doc spreadsheet, which, I'll post the link when we post the link to the show tomorrow. So now the key level on the downside is this 14,955, which was kind of key over here, as you can see,
Yep.
and over here and over here.
Mm-hmm.
And on the upside, we got the full square, and the full square is up around 15,570, 15,560. So the next thing we're going to run into is this resistance from the trend line early next week. We'll see what happens. Does it stall and give us a pullback? If the pullback comes back and holds this half square, super bullish.
Right.
Then we can attack and go up here and see what kind of business we can do on the full square.
Mhm.
Because we would break these trend lines and things would be kind of flowing animal spirits wise, but we'll see. We have to see. I mean, obviously you can't keep this angle up for very long. So we're
Mhm.
going to get a pullback. We got to watch the pullback. If we hold above this, it's very bullish. If we can pull back here and make a higher low, it still can be bullish, but less so. So much like you were describing with ES, we got to see how deep and how long this next correction is. I also wanted to show you the weekly. So the weekly is where we closed right on the line
Mhm.
this week. Nice reversal bar, but we're reversing right into this triangle.
Right.
Are we going to jam around here for a while?
We
Maybe.
could. We could.
Yeah, we could chop, push up, pull back, push up, pull back, and just chop around in this tight range, into the end of the year. But we'll see. We know the levels. We know what to watch. We did get that weekly reversal bar, so that's important. If we pull back and sit on the highs of last week, that'll be bullish.
Mhm.
Anything you want to add on the NQs?
Well, just that even though, I mean, we really need to hold up here, maybe above your 50% of square line there.
Mm-hmm.
We really need to hold above that to pick up momentum. I don't think upside momentum is still there. So, not to mention taking out the prior high, October high is another thing we really must kind of do.
Mm-hmm.
So long as we're above that 50% of the square, I think we're okay. But if we slip below that, I think we could easily consolidate or go weaker.
Yeah.
I'm still not all bullied up on this just because we had a few days up. So,
Right. Seen it before.
yeah.
All right, let's jump over to Bitcoin because this did something interesting here. This to me looks like, well, it's not a classic false break because we didn't collapse, but it looks like we got rejected on that move.
Mm.
And we got rejected on a full square timing. So, and if you really look, you can see kind of 5 up here, right?
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm really curious to see if we can hold this half square.
Mm-hmm.
If we lose that half square, then yes, that was a false break. Yes, something ended here, and now we got to see what comes next. If we continue this sideways, can still say it's bullish, and we still can push up and try and attack that full square. But this little sort of stick out that didn't hold is what sort of has me intrigued. It kind of reminds me of this
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and this,
Right.
where it went up and then it came back. So we'll have to see how it goes. Any other insights you want to add into here?
Well, we got to remember we're above the 50% of the squares. It has the momentum in its favor, so it's looking okay. And I think I mean, on my charts, as long as we're above really like 30, let's say 3,200, we're in pretty good shape.
32,000's right around here. Yep.
Right, 32,000, we're in pretty good shape. And above the 50% of the square, we're in excellent shape.
Yeah.
And 90 degrees up from me from the low in September is around 37,000. So
Which would be up in here.
is that right there?
37 evens right about there.
Right there, yeah.
Almost
So,
at the full
so
square.
we have, so that would give us about 90. We obviously
Mhm.
that range can go up to about, about 37. Yeah. So we do have some upside and we are above the 50% of the square. Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see how it goes.
Mhm.
On the commodity side, it was a kind of an interesting week in that a couple of the things that we highlighted last week, that the setups were there, further solidified the bullish setups, and I want to talk about them. That's soybeans and coffee. Silver, a lot like gold, is resting, but it's resting in a bullish position, so I want to review that. And then nat gas is acting really, really well, so I wanted to review that. The others, wheat and corn had a little upward activity today, but they're still basically sideways, trying to get that initial low put in place that we can work off of. The sugar short, it hasn't made another high. It's not collapsing. It's kind of going sideways. So I'm kind of lukewarm on that right now. Cotton continues to go sideways, and it's doing something interesting, which I want to watch for another week or so. The last time before it took off after a big sideways, it made a dip down first, and cotton's kind of doing the same thing now. So we'll see how that goes. Cocoa actually pushed up into another high. So, stepping aside from that when we did was smart. Copper you covered, crude you covered. So let's jump in and take a look at beans, which really stood out to me this week, based upon what the price action that we saw. So we had this low that we called out. We had the first push up, and last week we ended in this sort of little pullback area in here. And I said, when we take out this, we should see some pretty good action. The first thing that happened in the week is we started staying on top of the half square, which is always important. And then Thursday, big up bar closing at the high, took out this high. And then today, big up bar closing at the high. I mean, that's kind of what you want to see when these things take off on a fast move. So this looks to be moving. I think, the next target, once we get through the trend line here, the trend line is around 1370. So once we break that trend line, then we go up to the full square, which is around just under 1400, 1396. And that's where it looks to me like we appear to be going, with the speed that we moved on Thursday and Friday today. Let's go to the weekly. I wanted to show you something in the weekly. If you remember, 3 or 4 weeks ago, we talked about this outside reversal bar when we were calling out the low. It doesn't look like a major bar, but again, it's made a low in the week, closed above the high of the previous week. We said that's an outside reversal. Big up bar the next week, inside bar the following week, big up bar the next week, this past week. That's what you want to see and what you get a lot of times when you get that outside reversal bar that marks a low. Where you have squares, we have the full square here that it was sitting on. We had some squares at the low on the daily. But this is what I wanted to show here was the price action that came after the outside reversal bar.
Exactly.
So it's why we watch the weeklies. It's something to watch. It's something to be to notice, because it generally is a preview that, hey, the thing is turned and bullishness is coming in if it's an outside reversal up, or the opposite if it's an outside reversal down. Last thing, let's take a look at the monthly. We already have an up bar on the monthly. As you can see, we've already made a higher high. As long as we don't take out that low, that gives us an up bar for the month of November. So beans is looking good. It's looking like it's in a takeoff phase. Let's see what happens when we get to this trend line resistance, and then if we get to that, how we act when we get up to the full square near 1400. Anything you have to add here on this one?
Well, I think it's ready to be traded to the long side, as long as we're above that consolidation.
Yeah. And it's a finding the low, squares, degree counts, timing, all those sorts of things, and then getting that first thrust, higher low on the first pullback, and then the reversal is where you catch the fast move. And that's what it looks like it's happening here.
Right.
This thing kind of liked that cycle too, didn't it?
Yes.
It liked the cycles that weekend. So that's beans. Let's go to another one that had a good week after the setup we talked about last week. And that's coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of similar to the beans in that there was a low that came in. We had the first thrust off of that low, the first thrust up. We already broke the trend line, so that was already a positive. Then we had this little pullback, reversal, and then look at the bar we got today.
Yeah.
Closing out on the high, above the half square, took out the previous high. So we got the low, a high, a higher low, and now we got a higher high. So this also looks like it's in that phase where we want to push up and really start moving.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how the price action happens next week. Obviously, staying on and the commodities are a little different in that when they go, they don't pull back much. Like, look at this. You get these kind of moves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the downside, they run. So staying above this half square, not difficult if it's really running because the bar should go. It should go, starting Sunday night into Monday. So staying above this half square will be confirmation because then we're above all this price action here since June, late June, early July. So we'll be watching the half square to see if we can hold and extend out. And then it's going to be challenging these highs here up at the full square next.
Yeah, this setup looks good.
Yeah, it is a good setup. Let's look at the weekly. I wanted to show you the weekly, how we closed above the half square, this half square that's been holding price for a while.
Mm-hmm.
We had that push up, another up bar. Well, this is an outside bar, but we ended up, which is even better, right? Because remember,
as soon as we figure there's no inflation,
right,
coffee starts to move.
And again, look how it all started with that outside reversal bar, right?
Yeah.
There's your outside reversal bar, big up bar, another up bar. Here we got an outside bar that closes up. So they tried to take this thing down earlier in the week, and it got bid up.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an example of a market that's acting bullishly. What do I have on the monthly? Oh, the monthly I want to show you. Let's see. So we had an outside reversal bar last month. Gold did the same thing. And now we already have an up bar so far as a follow through 2 days or 3 days into the month of November. So as long as we don't take out these lows, we'll have another up bar after an outside reversal bar. So you watch those outside reversals on bigger time frames. They're often signaling a shift. And if you match it up with cycles and the positive technicals, it can really give you a nice risk reward trade to get in. And coffee looks good, as you said. Anything you want to add? I know you got some levels and stuff you like on coffee.
Coffee, I think above that 161 is really the key. As long as we're above that, I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, it looks ready to go. I mean, I'm excited to see if we get a big move on the longs early next week.
Worst case, we should get, I think, an ABCDs in the works.
Yeah, that would be a nice move too.
And we're getting really early warning here, so
that would.
I think that's reasonable, really reasonable. Maybe even full square, but that ABCD is pretty good.
Yeah,
leave it there. We'll see. We'll hit it.
We'll see. All right, let's go check out silver. A lot like gold, it kind of made a nice move up, and now we've been pausing for a while. The key thing I wanted to point out here, it's not like it's imminent, like you got to jump in or dive in, but notice how we're staying on top of that full square. And that's a positive, right? Even though we're going sideways, even though we're just kind of, meandering, if we can do that and work off, whatever cycle or whatever, sort of consolidation it needs to do here, and we stay on top of that square, that's going to give you the launching pad.
Right.
And that's that's one thing I'm watching here. I wouldn't be surprised if right before we do it, it comes down and takes out all these lows and does a little false break and then reverses. But I'm really interested in watching how silver acts. A lot, like I said, it's a lot like the pattern in gold, where it's not screaming higher, but it's also not pulling back a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that warrants, keeping an eye on silver, watching the progress. No surprise, because we've been going sideways. The weekly, we did an inside bar. So one of your tricks, Barry, I know, is you watch to see which end of that inside bar gets taken out first. It kind of gives you a clue to what side may be winning.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks boring, but I would keep a very close eye on silver as long as we can hold that roughly 2270 area. It shows that odds would favor getting a bullish outcome coming out of this consolidation. So that's silver. And then lastly, but not least, everybody's favorite, nat gas. So let's look at this thing, because this is interesting from this standpoint. We had the gap up with the contract change, and then we kind of pulled back sharply, went back up sharply, and now we're kind of winding up. But look what we're winding up on.
Yep.
Staying on top of the half square. The half square here, as long as we're on top of this 342 area, and we can hold on top of that 342,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it crisscrosses because this is sort of a little sort of falling wedge. If we can stay on top of that 342, it definitely opens up the 401 area, $4 area, on a breakout. And structurally, for people that look at structure, what are we doing? We're sitting on top of this spike high here.
Right.
It's bullish. I mean, we could even come down to here and still be bullish, which would be around a little over 3. So this, to me, it's in a kind of lull people to sleep pattern before the next big move out of it. And we'll see. We'll see if we get it. On the weekly, what I want to show you here, last week was an outside reversal bar up. This week we've got an inside bar. If you've been paying attention, when we show that on other things, where you get, like we showed it on beans, we had an outside reversal up, we had an inside bar, we had a big up bar. So inside bars after outside reversal bars are not negative. It's just it means it's like a high level consolidation in this case. So it's building up steam to attack this full square, which is in that 367 area. So on the weekly basis and this outside bar sort of thing, we could take out that high and then clear this full square. That's where we open up the next big square higher. So I like it on a weekly basis. I like it on a long-term basis, and that daily, while it may seem boring, it's kind of slowly and stealthily sneaking up, where when it does these things, and then in 2 days you get a massive move from half a square. And so that's probably something similar that's going to happen here. Once it breaks out in a couple of days, we'll be up at that full square. Anything else to add on this one?
Well, I think being patient is the key here. It's getting ready. It's really tightening up.
Right.
And levels are good. Yeah.
It looks solid. I think one of the things I wanted to discuss with you in sort of our ending topic is, all right, what's your feeling about that cycle window that we just passed? What markets do you think it showed up in for you, Barry, where, okay, I know the direction. I know the direction to trade.
Well, S&P.
S&P, I agree.
We saw that coming, and we called that out. Bonds, we saw the bond downturn. We squared out, and we was looking for some kind of a counter trend or a pause. So that was another one that reacted to the market.
Absolutely. And Qs I'd throw in there.
For sure. Yep.
Soybeans
gold ran up right into that.
Yep. Soybeans.
Mm-hmm.
I think we kicked into a higher gear this week.
Right.
Gold and silver are interesting because it's a different effect, right? They ran up into it, and now they're kind of consolidating since the new cycle came in.
Exactly. Well, it consolidated right through it, right? Sort of, but it ran up into it.
It ran up into it, and now we're consolidating.
So I think the big question is, is this like we were talking about earlier, is this a low that can take us, that could last for 3 months or not, right?
Right.
Something like that. So does it have legs? Well, we'll know after the next counter trend. I think
That's true.
And,
And that's one of the key things that I hope comes through in what we talk about is a lot of what we do is, a lot of work goes into isolating these corners. But even when you isolate a corner, it's the next counter trend after the thrust that matters.
Mhm.
Because that's where you get confirmation, or it gets rejected, or it becomes something different.
Absolutely.
And I don't think enough people are focused. Everyone's focused on, let's find the high, let's find the low, and that's important. But the maybe more important is what do you do once you see the next counter trend, right?
Yeah. And
go
ahead.
I was going to say it's that extra piece of information that you require.
Absolutely. Because that's going to help you gauge the rest of the leg, even if it's an ABCD at a minimal.
Right.
At a minimal, and if it's more than that, okay, great, we can take that. But I think it depends on your trade. I was talking to a friend this morning who, he was talking about how he trades the S&P short term, but the longer term ones, he just looks for huge cyclical lows and just gets in somewhere, and he doesn't really care if he's catching the low or a little bit off the low or whatnot. So I think for those people, it really doesn't matter as long as they're within some kind of a value level. Mm-hmm. For us, the way we trade, we're very short-term oriented. We're almost like leg to leg,
right?
Trading the shorter term legs, swings. Let's say swing traders. Mm-hmm. So for us, we have to look at it in a very, very specific way, and that's why we're talking. This is not for everybody, right? I wouldn't say everybody has to be looking at the first counter trend, then decide there and all of. But I think if you're going to trade, swing trade is probably the most profitable because the risk is minimal, because you're not holding for some unknown time over some unknown profit target. We're very, very focused in time and price. So if you trade like that, then these methods will work. You want to wait for the next counter trend, pick it up, look at the strength of the counter trend, the depth of the counter trend, the pattern in the counter trend, how many days, you take all that into account. And when you come off of those points, come off of those counter trend highs or lows, you can capture the next, it's either the last leg of the ABCD or you're playing with the third wave. Either way,
massive.
That's where the
potential.
money is.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's true. And it's we've been able to demonstrate that time and again. And I think if you like you said it a while ago, if you look at each episode we do as a part of a movie and a story, you can see how it's connected from show to show, where we get a corner, we try to isolate the corner, and then based on finding that corner, we then say, okay, we've had the first thrust. Now the first pullback comes in. Okay, it's giving us this. Now we can estimate what the potential for the next move after that's going to be. Mm-hmm. And it is a story. It's a movie. It's a progression. It's kind of, and we saw it this week in soybeans and coffee, right? How both of them 3 or 4 weeks ago, we got the low. We had the first thrust up. We had a pullback last week, and then this week we get the turn up for the next move and the next leg. Yeah. So,
and it's kind of a formula, because every pattern, every counter trend is different.
Yeah.
I mean, once in a while you can go back and find another one that's very similar. So you really have to track them, and if you can get the levels for each, and that's why they can't be similar. I mean, exact, because you're never at the same price level doing the exact same pattern. And the level matters, So,
well, I think our prediction from August that it wasn't going to be boring is coming to pass, and I don't think between now and year end we're going to be bored at all. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of shifting. A lot of money's moving from different sectors to different groups. So it's an exciting time to be trading, and we hope that the information we're providing is helpful to you all. If it is, please, click on the likes, ring the bell, set the alerts, subscribe to the channel, help us grow the channel, and
Share the videos.
and share the videos. Yeah, we're glad to do these. We love doing these videos, and the more you guys, give us that feedback, the more motivated we are to do these. So we appreciate that. And everybody have a good weekend and rest up and be ready for next week, because it should be full of fireworks as well. Great show, Barry. Good job.
Thanks, Ben. Good job. We'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.